Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are a current subscriber, thank you so much for your support. And if you are new here, welcome to the channel. I think a lot of us are more tired than we realize, and it's not because we're doing too much, it's because we feel like we have something to prove. So what does performing your worth actually look like? It's always feeling like you have to show your value, needing to be on or at 10 all the time, over explaining, over delivering, or just trying to stay ahead of judgment. Let's explore some real life examples where this would show up, starting with the work setting. Maybe you're the employee that always stays late, or you're always available after work hours. In conversations, are you over explaining, or are you offering to help when you really don't want to, but feel that you have to? In new environments, maybe your attire, the way that you're presenting yourself, you're wearing something that you wouldn't ordinarily wear, or something that is uncomfortable rather. Even creatively, going over and obsessing every detail until you're exhausted. Um, these are real life examples of where performing your worth would show up. And I'll take it a step further. For me personally, it's always wanting to come across as competent, always wanting to be understood, always wanting to be taken seriously. And when I reflect on this, it really doesn't feel like confidence. It feels more like pressure. Now let's explore, where does this feeling of performing your worth actually come from? Beginning with feeling like you have to prove that you belong. And I will use my own personal lived experiences as examples. So for me, in corporate environments, maybe there weren't many people who looked like me, or they had more education than I did, or they were better versed than I was. So I always felt like I was in competition where I had to meet or exceed where they were. So that's one example. Another example would be not wanting to feel underestimated. And for me, this showed up as me feeling as if I was being held to a different standard. And it could show up in many different ways. Going back to the working in a corporate environment, where there weren't as many people or coworkers that looked like me. So I always felt like I was, mm, I won't say beneath them or inferior in some ways. So I always felt like I was in that competition and trying to level up and at least get to where they were. For example, could be any past environment where you felt like you had to overperform. And for me, again, going back to my experience working in corporate environments, it was always feeling like there was no room for error, especially with me being a woman and a woman of color. I felt like I was already behind the eight ball just because of that. So I was constantly trying to prove and to achieve and to do better, because I felt like I was already at a disadvantage. So let me expand on that a little bit in terms of what that actually looked like for me. There was a lot of code switching, feeling that I couldn't say things a certain way or present in a certain way. Maybe I felt my hairstyle or my hair color couldn't be a certain way. So I would shrink myself in those areas just to feel like I belonged, or to prove that I belonged, and that I was worthy of being where I was. Also looks like being hyper aware. Again, for me, being a woman of color, as you can see, I enjoy wearing different hairstyles, braids, color. So little things of, when I wanted to go get my hair done, well, what can I do that stays true to me, but also still doesn't quite cross the line that would make anyone feel uncomfortable? Or in some work environments, Maybe you're going against their grooming standards policy or their dress code policy. So it's always trying to find that fine line to where you can still be true to who you are and represent yourself, but also not toting the line of where people will perceive you as being different or maybe not being worthy or deserving of some of your counterparts or your other colleagues. So being hyper aware of that. Then I think always just wanting to think one step ahead. Um, and I think that shows up in a lot of different ways too. For me, um, I tend to overthink. I'm a critical thinker at heart based on my background and my work background, but always wanting to look at the big picture and be ahead of the game because again, it goes back to me internalizing that I don't have any room for error and I need to be on my game and make sure that I'm prepared for whatever may be coming my way. So those are just a few things to highlight and how this can show up in real life and how it has shown up for me in my own personal experiences. And what I learned was that over time, this becomes your default, even when it's no longer necessary, and you don't even realize it. So we talked about what this could look like. Now let's explore what this feels like, this feeling of performing your worth. And again, I will use my own lived experiences. For me, it was mentally draining. I would go home at the end of the day from work and I would be exhausted. Um, I felt like I always had to be on and I always had to be at a 10, which again, it's very exhausting and it takes a toll. I don't think that I was ever really fully relaxed. I felt like I always had to be, I don't want to say on guard, but I always had to be aware of what was going on. And again, that becomes taxing, right? And then always evaluating myself, thinking about any conversations that I had with folks throughout the day and wondering if I said the right thing, questioning how I came across. Did I come across confident? Did I come across competent? Um, did they understand what I was saying? It's just this cycle that you're replaying in your head as you're thinking back on your day. And it's not only mental exhaustion, but it's physical exhaustion. Um, it's emotional exhaustion. So it really, over time, it really can take a toll on your mental and physical health. And that's not a good thing. When I think back about what it costs me, as I reflect back, it definitely cost me my energy. It cost me my peace. It cost me my authenticity. Um, and to expand on that a little bit, I wasn't showing up fully as myself. I was over editing. I was holding back and I was missing out on moments where I could have been present. And as I reflect and think back about that, performing your worth really makes everything heavier than it needs to be. So at some point, I had to ask myself, what am I trying to prove in every space that I walk into? And who am I trying to prove it for? What am I trying to gain from it? And what would happen if I didn't? And what I realized is that most of the pressure is internal. It's not coming from others. And this is when this shift started to take place for me, started to come into play. And I started to ask myself questions like, what if I didn't have to prove anything? Or what if how I show up is already enough? And so, what would it look like if I showed up in a space and didn't overthink? For example, what if I showed up without over explaining or spoke before overthinking or existed without performing, what would that look like? So, as I was doing a deeper dive, I came to the same realization that I did in an earlier video, where I realized it was coming down to an internal battle of performance versus presence and proving versus being. And so this is where the reframe came in for me. I started to think maybe it's not about becoming more. Maybe it's about letting go of the need to prove who you already are. I'm going to say that again. So maybe it's not about becoming more. Maybe it's about letting go of the need to prove who you already are. So let's expand on that a little bit. So essentially, you don't need to earn your worth in every moment, and you don't need to justify your presence. So now I'd like to ask you, how often do you feel like you have to prove yourself? And more importantly, what would it feel like if you stopped? One thing that's been really helpful for me this season has been creating small moments where I can slow down and come back to myself. And journaling has been a big part of that for me. Just being able to get out my thoughts, clear my mind, and come back to what I know to be true. Even the tools I use, like the pens, the space that I create around me, they all help me stay grounded and intentional. So if you are someone who is looking for that too, I will share a few of the things I use below. So to close, I want to say that I'm learning that I don't have to perform to be worthy, that I can just be, and that's enough. And one more thing that I would like to leave you is the gentle reminder that whatever you're going through, please remember that up until this point, your success rate has been 100% because you are still standing. So please keep going. Please keep moving forward. And please hang in there. Everything will be okay. Till next time. See you guys later. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and share. And if you enjoy this type of content and want to explore more topics like this with me each week, I invite you to join the collective by clicking on the subscribe button below. I'd love to have you.